ICL, MCTAC, and its partners bring you an HCBS How-To series. I'm Emily Kingman from ICL, and today we are going to talk about how to invest in your future with HCBS. If you have been listening to our other presentations in this series, you heard about how ICL got HCBS up and running and what it actually looks like on the ground. Today we are going to take a step back and look at how HCBS fits into the bigger picture of Medicaid reform in New York State. As we are all aware, these are very uncertain times for our public health care system. One thing we can be sure of is that the old ways of operating were not working. Costs were very high, but without the outcomes to show for it, especially for people with serious behavioral health issues. So New York embarked on a massive reform of the state's Medicaid system to achieve the triple aim of improving outcomes, lowering costs, and improving the experience of care. These reforms, including health homes, integrated managed care, HARP, HCBS, and DSRIP, are all designed to move us from a fragmented system to a fully integrated system of care. And it's not just services that are being reformed. With the introduction of value-based payments, the reimbursement structure is being reformed as well, incentivizing providers to partner with each other. While many of these reforms focus on infrastructure, HCBS puts the person-centered, recovery-oriented philosophy into action through innovative service delivery. At ICL, we have seen how HCBS can affect change in the lives of individuals, and on a larger scale, the potential it has to affect change system-wide. I talked with David Woodlock, ICL CEO, about the organization's experience with HCBS and the unique value it brings to the system at large.
First and foremost, I think we've at ICL had some really remarkable success stories from the people that have been engaged in our HCBS services. And at the end of the day, for all of the complexities and the context with which these new services were being developed, it's still about trying to get people back on their feet. I think one of the real challenges looking to the future of HCBS is really the issue of volume. The funding mechanisms that have been put in place to support this program are heavily weighted to high volume services, which in and of itself isn't necessarily good or bad. We've struggled mightily to get as much volume and serve as many people as we could, and it's been a struggle. And I have to say, after a year in serving more people than most agencies, I believe, we're not in the black yet. It's been an investment on our part. I think it's a worthwhile investment so far. I think the concept at the end of the day is a solid one, and it's based in individual choice and individual recovery. And too often, particularly in my experience in government, we defined a program model that gets developed with regulatory frameworks around it and financing mechanisms that at least try and make it work. And then more often than not, we say, to clients, here's the program that's been rolled out. I hope it works for you. I know I'm being a little glib in saying it that way, but I think that's closer to the truth than many of us may want to acknowledge on any given day.
HCBS offers us the flexibility to support people throughout the recovery process. This might mean engaging someone who has been disconnected from treatment for a long time, or providing extra support to someone in an outpatient clinic to help them return to work. Or it might be part of a discharge plan for someone moving on from a PROS program. And perhaps even more significant, HCBS allows us to provide those services where the person chooses.
I think there's also, in the last few years in particular, an emphasis on network development, banding groups of services together, whether that's individual agencies coming together or trying to knit services together for people. That still requires people, many of whom have enormously complex lives and enormous numbers of challenges to try and overcome getting through their day. It requires those same people to schedule numerous appointments, going to multiple sites to make them work. And then we kind of all wonder and scratch our heads why people aren't taking advantage of all of these wonderful services that are available. I think the brilliance of the home and community-based services is that it brings that same network idea really as defined by the individual rather than by a program model per se to the person rather than the other way around. A couple of the success stories that I've been privileged to hear about really talked about how one HCBS service in particular, whether it was educational services or vocational services or peer services, led to engagement, and that's the fundamental first step in my mind. That unless you have really engaged people, the rest of it is a lot less likely to be beneficial to people. And I think we've engaged people, and then as their trust in us grew, and we're able to talk about the other needs that they or their family may have, that network brought to bear more of the HCBS services to bear on that individual or their family's challenges, and really help turn their lives around in really, I have to say, in rather remarkable ways. And at least for, again, relatively few numbers of people, it's truly been a game changer, a lifesaver.
HCBS brings personalized networks of care to people in their homes and their communities, and that is extremely valuable. And yet, HCBS alone is not enough to meet the full range of people's complex health and social service needs. To provide whole person care, we must collaborate with other providers. I spoke with Naomi Weinstein, ICL's Vice President of Innovations, about the importance of building relationships.
It is impossible to understate the importance of relationships in this new environment. Basically, with things like disrupted value-based payments, we either sink or swim, but we do it together. It's really a whole new way of thinking for everyone. We've been encouraged for years to collaborate. There are RFPs from the federal government or from the state, and everyone says they want partnerships. But this takes things really a step further. We're all being held responsible for a set of outcomes, and we are impacted financially regarding whether or not we achieve those outcomes. Now, we need to remember that we have many more stakeholders now than we did in the past. We are connected, of course, to other HCBS providers and to health homes, and that means both anyone who has an internal care management program as well as outside health homes. But we also need to be connected to other providers, to managed care organizations, to hospitals even, and we need to be closely connected to other systems of care. That means child welfare, criminal justice, education, all of those systems. So the question is, what does it take to form these relationships? Well, first, it takes a lot of hard work and a lot of dedicated attention. That may even mean dedicated staff or a reallocation of how staff are deployed in order to have somebody who has the time to focus on forming these relationships. I think it's really important also that you be a consistent presence. You can't be an agency or a program that shows up to a meeting or two and then says, okay, we have a relationship. It has to go much deeper than that. It means consistently showing up. It means being there and putting in the hard work. When everyone's forming a task force, you got to be part of that task force and putting in your time. It means that you have to keep your commitments. If you promise you're going to have something, you have to have it. You can't drop the ball. You have to provide quality care consistently. You also have to have an awareness of what value your agency or your program brings to the table.
To illustrate the benefits of partnering with others, let's take a closer look at the relationship between HCBS providers and health homes. Our HCBS team is working increasingly closely with health home care management agencies, including our own internal care coordination program. I spoke with Eddie Hardaway, AVP of Care Coordination at ICL, about the role of health homes and its relationship to HCBS.
We, as the care coordination, are the bridge between the managed care organization, or MCO, and the actual HCBS provider. So as the sort of bridge here, we are in a unique position as a care coordination program to sort of develop the strategies that are needed to, one, provide the education, and two, build the relationships to the members so they feel like these HCBS services can be a benefit to their overall care.
As we discussed in part 1 of this series, Deidre Summers, ICL's director of HCBS, regularly does outreach to care management agencies and gives presentations to care coordinators.
Implementing the HCBS presentations, I go there with an agenda in mind to educate the health and care coordinators, help them understand the service specifically so they're using more client-oriented language. And also, I give them the opportunity to have open-ended questions where if they want the specific part of the presentation to be answered in a certain way or addressed in other areas, I allow that to happen so they can feel most comfortable with the services. And when the presentation is over, they can walk away with better knowledge, more confident in to be able to explain the HCBS services to their clients.
Deidre has found that building relationships involves not just one presentation, but meeting with a program multiple times to check in, and together they can brainstorm ways to improve the process for everyone. One outcome of these meetings with ICL's internal care coordination program has been to establish a warm handoff when the person is referred to the HCBS team for assessment.
This is actually done as part of a warm handoff. So the care coordinator will go along with the actual HCBS provider to say, hey, Mr. Doe, this is such and such from the HCBS provider. Remember, we talked about they will come out and do a evaluation of service to be sure that the service is fine-tuned to your needs, so that when it's approved, the initial meeting has already taken place. There's a beginning of an initial relationship has already developed.
By working together, they can also troubleshoot any issues that arise. For example, recently there were some challenges in getting the plans of care approved by the MCOs. So Tasha Fletcher, an ICL care coordination supervisor, reached out to Deidre as a resource.
I think the presentation was more than I expected in a good way, because initially I reached out to Deidre to come talk to me and my staff about HCBS services and the documentation process surrounding the POC, the plan of care, and Deidre brought reps from a managed care agency, and I thought that was highly beneficial for us because we are creating the plan of care for them to review and make a decision. So why not hear directly from the managed care what they're looking from us as the care coordination agency?
During the presentation, the managed care reps gave an overview of what information is needed for the level of service determination and the plan of care. Deidre followed up with more specific information about the HCBS services. For each service, she shared a story about how it helped a person make a change in their life. If I could describe the presentation in one word, it would be accessible. The handouts are simple one-pagers rather than detailed documents, so the information was presented in bite-sized pieces. She also provided tips on how to conduct the eligibility assessment in a way that opens up a conversation with the member, leading to increased engagement. While Deidre is providing support to the care coordinators, it also makes her job easier, because this relationship they have developed helps ensure that when the plan of care needs to be updated or new services added, the process will be a smooth one. The HCBS Health Home relationship is just one of many collaborations that are required for HCBS to succeed. As providers, we all need to connect with a full range of partners and know the value we bring to the relationship. Ultimately, the future, our ability to survive and thrive, depends on cultivating relationships. We hope you have found our HCBS Toolkit series helpful. If you want more information about ICL's experience with HCBS, you can contact me at emily.kingman@iclinc.net. Thank you for listening.